Well, February has come and gone. I don't know where time is going this year. I feel like I just blink my eyes and a week has already gone by. Pretty soon we're going to be in July, and then I'm going to turn around the corner and it's going to be Christmas again. But either way, it is the end of the month, which also means it's the end of a season, and we have a new one right around the corner, which means that it is time for my monthly video to kind of talk through the state of my collection and also how I'm going to be spending my resources in the coming season. As always, this is just my opinion. I would not take any of this as analytical fact. This is just particularly how I'm going to be spending my keys and tokens, who I want to chase after, who looks fun for the decks that I like to play. The one thing I do want to point out, though, is that after my last monthly video, I did get accused of being a hoarder a lot. And you guys should be happy to know that I did spend a bunch of tokens this month. I picked up Galactus, Eliath, and Erishim, which I think are 3 cards that escaped the old series drop, which I'm really actually happy they did for that reason alone. So I did spend 18,000 tokens. So I mean, I am ticking away at my just mountain of resources that I kind of had built up. But I did actually gain some more back because I did also, just full transparency, pick up the Ajax bundle, because for starters, I figured I am already investing a lot of time into this. I probably should put forth a little bit more investment as well to build out my collection for, you know, better content and everything. I just feel like that's something that I at least owe to you guys, is to make the best content that I can. So I did whale out a little bit. Is that whaling? Where's the line? When do you fish become a whale from a dolphin? Maybe I'm just an overstuffed dolphin at this point. Either way, so I did gain some tokens from that, and I have been chasing a certain album because I really want the Galactus emote where he's just going, okay. So I did gain some tokens from that one. So we do have a little bit more, but I do have a plan already on how I'm going to spend those. I'm not worried at all. But either way, let's hop in there and let's look at essentially how this season was before we move on to the next one. Before we do hop into the cards, let's actually do a quick run through of my current state of my collection. I am collection level 8,155. I'm coming in hot on that 10,000 collection level, which is kind of wild to think about. I am floating at 17 keys out there. I actually am really close to number 18, and I think I actually have the credits to honestly push really close to number 19. On top of it, I also have 21,000 tokens, so I can get three, am I doing that math right? 3 series 5 cards at this point, which, like I said, I have a plan for that coming in March. I have 2 cards I'll be getting with tokens, so we can talk about that once we get to them. But that essentially is the state of my collection. I am hoarding keys right now extremely heavily, primarily because of April. And I've said this multiple times when I'm talking about the April spotlight caches. There is a single card, 1 card in all the spotlight caches in all of April that I own. So I'm just trying to hoard as many keys as I possibly can, and I'm just gonna go ham. I'm just gonna go every week. I'm just 4-keying every week. So I need to have at least 16 keys going into the month of April. And that's not counting any of the weeks that I want to pull on here, which there are a couple weeks that I don't use keys on here. So I'm really just trying to, I was trying to be conservative throughout February on my keys for that reason alone, just because I'm really excited for March and April. But that is the state of my collection. Let's dive on to the next thing. Okay, let's start with Sam Wilson, Captain America, the Season Pass card before we move on to the Spotlight caches. And I think the wild thing I'm going to say about Sam Wilson is that he is probably, is he the weakest out of the past few months for Season Pass cards? Which is a wild statement, because he's really good. But you had Iron Patriot before him, which is time and time again showing how strong he is. I'm shocked that Iron Patriot has not been at least adjusted yet. I was highly expecting him to go from -4 cost down to -3 cost in the OTA today, but nope, he still is untouched. We have Galacta before him, which is really, really strong in a certain deck. And honestly, I feel like Galacta can get thrown into any deck. I mean, if you're looking for a good 4-cost card, you can just throw her in there. 4/6 is not a bad stat line. And as long as you're at least playing a card on turn 5 and 6, she's getting another 6 to that. So she's a 4/12. Super, super strong. And before them was Surtur, which Surtur just got nerfed for the second time. So we'll see how he lands after this. It'll be interesting to see his reign finally end. And then prior to that, we had Agent Venom, who's probably, I would put him probably below Sam Wilson Captain America, just on pure versatility. Agent Venom does not go in every deck. Sam Wilson, you could throw him in anything and he'd be functional. And then before that is Symbiote Spider-Man, who definitely is the caboose on this extremely overpowered train. But I think that Sam Wilson has just kind of shown he's an extremely good versatile card that could be kind of tossed into anything. I mean, he was ran in move packages, you know, to boost Kraven. I think he was ran in screen packages. He definitely was ran in Surtur because you always have a place to play Cole Obsidian. I threw him in Zoo because he was a fantastic target for Marvel Boy, and having that 1-cost card out there, plus throwing regular Captain America in there to buff up your Khazar and Blue Marvel. He's just a good card. Just overall a good card. And I think the one thing that sets him apart of some of the other season pass cards is he probably was the most versatile. You could say maybe Iron Patriot, but with Iron Patriot, you'd want cards to make sure that you could ensure you're winning that lane. Sam Wilson didn't need anything to be built around him. You could just slot him into whatever you want. So really good season pass card. And I think it's just kind of showing time and again, if you're gonna spend money on this game, you might as well do the season pass, because they're probably going to be the best card of the month over and over again. So that's Sam Wilson. Let's move on to the Spotlight Caches. Okay, and the first card that we got in the Spotlight Caches this month was Joaquin Torres, and I think the crowd went mild. I think that he had potential. There were always a couple of decks that popped up. They're like, look what we did with him, but I think they were all very finicky, not consistent, and it was just based on getting some really interesting combos up, but you had to have the perfect play of hand. I think that them changing him to, I believe now a 2/2 is going to be very interesting. I think at 2/2 he becomes honestly, I think he could be a little scary, especially in some bounce packages, being able to throw him out on turn 2 and then throwing out a bunch of ones on turn 3, especially stuff like Hood or Iceman or whatever you're going to do, and then bounce them back with Falcon. I think that he could honestly be a real contender here, and maybe kind of an issue. We'll see how that change affects him. I think overall he just kind of is an okay card in an okay month as he was. We will see how this OTA affects him though. Next one is our boy Thaddeus Ross, who was probably, and I hate to say it, my disappointment of the month. I was hot and heavy on Thaddeus. I don't think he's bad. I just don't think that it's the right time for him. I mean, he was played in what, Hela, Surtur, and High Evo. I think those were it. I think the best deck for him ended up being High Evo, so that you could make sure you had, you know, your She-Hulks, your Red Hulks, your regular Hulks, which is honestly a very interesting thing. But once again, it's in the hands of your opponent on whether they're not spending energy or not. So I think, you know, when he does work, it's cool. He works really well, but he was just kind of a disappointment for me. Did not even end up rolling for him, which is shocking, because I think he was the one coming into the month that I was like, I really want this guy. And honestly, I really wanted him for Surtur. Now that Surtur got the hatchet, I think I'm just doubly excited that I didn't do it. Next one on the list is Red Wing. And honestly, was Red Wing the best? No, I mean, up until Joaquin's change, maybe, because he did have some very interesting decks, especially with like some Dracula dumps, or there were some move packages that were interesting. But I just think that he was just too clunky. I think that he just was too clunky for people to really find a use for him that was consistent, but I could be wrong. I did keep hearing a couple people in my Discord saying that they did really enjoy him. They had decks that were working very well with him, but I just never saw him. I think that I never ran into him just because I do feel like that he's just a little bit clunky. And on top of it, you have to have things like Madam Web or Aranya. You have to have those activators. And I don't know if a whole lot of people actually really have Madam Web or Aranya. And I think that that's also one thing that kind of held him back, is he I mean, you could still use Ghost Spider, you could still use a bunch of things, but you really want those ones that aren't really on reveal. I think that Aranya is probably his best pairing, and I think that she's not readily available to a lot of the Snap, community. Or maybe she is, maybe I'm wrong. But I did roll in this week to get Baron Zemo and Loki. I still loved Loki. He was such a fun card. Hoping he does get some sort of rework to make him better in the future. Because I had a blast. I had an absolute blast with Loki. But he's not Red Wing. Then we've got Diamondback. And Diamondback to me feels like Affliction's version of Sage. And that's what she feels like to me. To me, she just feels like you want to hold her till turn 6, and you want to play her down in a lane with a bunch of cards, and she's gonna win that lane for you. I mean, to me, she's Affliction Sage. That's where she just kind of falls. I think she's really, really good. Unfortunately, like the rest of the Affliction package, she is extremely reliant on your opponent not having Luke Cage or not having Rogue to steal your Luke Cage. But I don't know. I'm really curious to see how Affliction is going to work out in the next couple of months, because I feel like Affliction is one of those archetypes that's very, very finicky, that would be very easy for them, if they did make changes to Luke Cage, could go overboard and could be a real problem. I think especially, I mean, I'm just trying to think right now, what would the meta look like if Luke Cage didn't exist? And it would be a problem. I think Affliction is really, really good, and I know it's extremely unfortunate that such a cool archetype gets shut down by a single card. And I know there's ways to get it around Luke Cage, but I think if I know why they're being a little cautious with changes to Luke Cage, because if it's not done right, I think that Affliction would just run rampant. Because it would. I mean, I think that Dimebag is a really, really good card, but she does have just one Achilles heel on Luke Cage. So I'm really curious. I think that if they do some major changes to Luke Cage in the future, Diamondback is probably going to be a card that you're going to want to have, because Affliction could be an extremely strong deck to play. And I think that she's honestly good now. You just kind of have to either have a way to stop their Luke Cage, or hope they don't have him. Okay, and speaking of broken season pass cards, we've got Agamotto here. He's a 5/10 game start. Shuffle 4 Ancient Arcana into your deck. The Ancient Arcana are Winds of Watum, Temporal Manipulation, Images of Icon, Bolts of Balthak. There is an inappropriate version of Bolts of Balthak that everyone else is calling it. I will let you guys figure out what everyone is calling it. But just to run through them real quick, Winds of Watum is a 2/0 on reveal. Afflict an enemy card here with -5 power and move it to the right. It just sounds so dirty. For two mana, you move it out of the lane, so you could clog up somebody's lane and give it -5 power for 2 mana. Wild. 1/0 Temporal Manipulation on reveal. Give Agamotto +3 power. Put him in your hand if he's not in play. It's 1 cost draw plus you buff him up. It's a 1/3 draw. It's good. It's good. Images of Icon on reveal. Transform your other cards here into copies of the highest power 1, which is wild. The example that I keep using is that you throw out Squirrels on turn 1 with Enzu, and then maybe you can play Kate Bishop or another cheap card in the lane as well, and then eventually you get a free Mockingbird, throw it in the lane with them with Image of Icon, and you get 3 Mockingbirds in the lane, which is nuts. That is nuts. And then finally the Bolts of Balthak on reveal. Next turn you get +4 energy. That's 8 energy on turn 4. That is wild. That is wild that you can get 8 energy on turn 4. That's such a good ramp card. That's an insane ramp card. But all of these are banished. I know I didn't mention that earlier on. So once you play them, they actually disappear. Really, really strong. I think this is just kind of the continuation of season pass cards are really, really strong. So really curious to see how he's going to turn out. I think I mean, he does kind of clog up your deck a little bit. He does, you know, add 4 more cards to it. So there is that. The other thing is I'm pretty sure, and I don't know if we've actually gotten confirmation on this yet, is I don't think they have power associated with them. We did talk about this when I was on the Snap Judgment podcast, is I think they just have 2 costs, but the power is actually not listed on the card, which would be very, very interesting, especially considering like Cassandra Nova then wouldn't grow from them. So she wouldn't get an additional +4 if you played her out. Silver Sable, I think if she hit, she would not gain power as well, because I don't think they have power associated with them, but I do need to double check that. I'll be very curious to see how that ends up, if they do actually have power associated with them or not. But either way, he's going to be, he's going to be a really, really strong card. I'm kind of really looking forward to playing around with them. Okay, now it's time for the fun stuff. Let's talk about the Spotlight caches for March. The first one we're going to talk about, March 4th through March 11th in week 1, we've got Eson being joined by Beta Ray Bill and Wiccan. Eson is a 6/9. After each turn, put a card from your hand that didn't start in your deck here. I'm really disappointed he did get changed. Once again, when we talked about the last data mine, I understand that he would have been really busted in his old iteration. He probably would have been too strong. But I mean, at this point, he's just an Airshim add-in. I mean, there are potential other ways that you could play around him. Potentially maybe with Wiccan, trying to get him out early with like some other card gen shenanigans going on, especially if you were playing stuff like Kate Bishop and Coulson, and making sure that you're always playing stuff on curve, and then potentially getting Wiccan out, and then maybe you can get Eson out early. But I think overall he's going to fit best in Airshim. I think he's still going to be a good card in Airshim, but I just think unfortunately he's not as strong as he once was. However, I'm still excited for him. I'm really excited. I'm rolling on this week. I still do not have Beta Ray Bill, so I'm looking forward to getting a copy of him. And on top of it, the card that I really want for this month is in fact Wiccan. I'm excited to get Wiccan. I can't wait to play around with him. He's been at the top of my list for a long time, and I would have gotten it with tokens a long time ago if I didn't know that he was going to be in that week. As soon as the data mines came out, actually I had the tokens in hand and the data mines came out. I was like, dang it, well now I can't get him with tokens because he's literally right there. I can wait for the first week of March. But either way, rolling on this week, really excited. I'm gonna play around with Eson, really excited to do so, but I think Wiccan is the one of this week that I'm probably the most excited for. Next one on the list, we got week 2. We got March 11th through March 18th. We have Starbrand being joined by Fastos and Scar. Oh, our poor boy Scar just got nerfed too. We'll see how he does at 7 cost. I still think he's going to be really strong, but we'll see how he turns out. But Starbrand is a 3/10 ongoing. Your opponent has +3 power at each other location. I think everyone is hooting and hollering about how strong a card he is. We've never had a 3/10 before. His ongoing is pretty detrimental, but things in like Sauron, he's going to be so good. I think people were even saying at 3/10 with those other +3, he'd still be good in Surtur. I was a little bit, I'm not going to say skeptical. I really wanted to see that interaction happen to see how much that really did. Because I mean, as Surtur was, not talking how he is today after the OTA, I mean, technically, if you did throw him out there with Surtur on the board, Surtur goes up by 3. Starbrand, so it counteracts one of the lanes. Really, you're only given +3 in another lane for 3/10 in that lane. So, but I mean, we're just, we're splitting hairs at this point. He's a huge card. 3/10 is so much power, especially with Zero and Sauron coming out before him. He's going to be an absolute monstrosity. So I am actually going to get I'm spending tokens on him because I do have Fastos and I do have Scar. So he is definitely going to be a card that I'm spending tokens on in that week. And that is my plan for him. Looking forward to seeing just if he is the monster that everyone thinks that he is, or if he's not. All right, we've got week 3, March 18th through March 25th. We've got Firehair, Cassandra Nova, and Nico. Honestly, Nico, just not even just like to bump over Firehair. Nico is my absolute favorite 1-drop I think she is an absolute great versatile and utility card. There are times when I'm throwing decks together and I have to talk myself out of throwing her into things because she is a Series 5, especially if I'm trying to do a budget focused video. I can't just kind of just slap her into everything. Love Nico. Definitely a card, if you do not have in her collection, is worth chasing after. But let's talk about Firehair, the new card. She's a 2/3. When one of your cards is destroyed, this uses that card's on reveal. This needs to change. I'm hoping this gets changed before she gets released, because that is too strong. This is absolutely going to be a problem in Mill, especially if they're throwing things out like Cable and Yondu, and then they throw her out, and then they throw Misery out on the Cable and Yondu, and there goes 6 of your cards. It's a problem. So really, I'm excited to play around with her. I'm just hoping it's when the first of your cards is destroyed, this uses that card's on reveal, not all of them. So I think I'm hoping they change her description. Otherwise, she's gonna be a problem. She's gonna be a problem. But either way, I definitely, and this is my other week that I will be using tokens on, because I already have Cassandra Nova, I already have Nico. And it really honestly depends. I'm hoping they change her description. That's going to impact on whether I actually do chase after her or not. If she stays like this, probably I feel like you're going to have her. If she stays this strong, you're going to have her. But yeah, I will need to use tokens on this week if I do want to get a copy of Firehair. And that's really going to depend on what her text changed into. Otherwise, I still think this is an absolute really good week. Cassandra Nova, I feel like just keeps getting one blow after the next. I mean, we do have, she just, now that Airshim is just not as prevalent as he once was, she just is not as good as she was. And on top of it, I think the thing about Cassandra Nova that really sucks is if you don't play her on curve, she just gets worse as the game goes on. So, and I think that's really unfortunate for her. And on top of it, now that we have stuff like Gorgon, there's better ways to counter Airshim. So, I mean, I think she's really still pretty decently good and played in Affliction decks, but outside of that, there's just much better options in the 3 slot than poor Cassandra Nova anymore. But Nico's still a great card, and it's worth having Cassandra Nova, not to downplay her too much. Either way, great week. Really curious to see what they're doing with Firehair. Then we have week 4, March 25th through April 1st. And as you may notice, my shirt is different because this is the following day of when I recorded this. Because I incorrectly thought that Cersei was actually going to be in this week, but it actually is going to be Corvus Glaive. So I just decided to re-record this section. But this week we have Khonshu, Corvus Glaive, and Scorn. What an absolute discard player's paradise if you do not have these cards. Scorn is a staple at this point. If you enjoy discard, you kind of need to have her. She is a great card to chase after if you do really enjoy the discard archetype. Corvus Glaive, on the other hand, has kind of fallen off recently, but he may see some traction here with our new card of Khonshu. Khonshu is a 6/5. When discarded, return in its next phase. On reveal, resurrect a card you discarded to another location with its power set to 5. So Khonshu is a really interesting card. And at first, you would be like, oh, maybe he's going to fit in place of like Apocalypse. But the thing is that when you discard Khonshu, you discard him the first time, he goes from 5 power to 7 power. And then the thing that he revives then gets set to a set power of 7. And then the third time, he goes to 12 power. And then also the card that he revives also goes to 12 power. The thing is on after the second discard, his text, when discarded, returns it in its next phase, goes away. So you can only discard him twice. So it's not something like Apocalypse where you can just keep discarding him and his power keeps climbing. So you can only target him twice, which is really interesting. And I think that he plays a little bit more like what you'd expect out of, a Hela package and less out of a standard discard. I think he is really interesting card. I can't wait to play around with him. I mean, one of the suggestions that got thrown out is like, if you could discard Khonshu twice and discard Gore and then play Khonshu on turn 6, it's going to summon Gore at a base power of 12 in another lane. And I think that's the most important piece of his text is resurrected cards you discarded to another location. This isn't like Esau who summons a card to his location, or Hela where it's all random. You can actually target what you're bringing back roughly to at least where you're not putting Khonshu. I think that he's going to be really, really interesting. I'm hoping that he kind of opens up his own archetype. I mean, honestly, he'd probably fit into Hela really well, but I think that he's going to be his own thing. Because yes, you could discard him 3 times, play out Hela, and then Hela could essentially summon him back. And I guess, honestly, with some like Hell Cow shenanigans, that could be really interesting. Or maybe you discarded Blade and Hela brings back Blade, and then she summons back everything else, and then whatever Blade discards that she summons back, and then she brings back Khonshu could go out. I think there's so many interesting things. I just want to get my hands on him to see how he's actually going to play, because I think he's a really, really interesting card. I am really looking forward to him. Like I said as well, he's being joined by Scorn and Corvus Glaive, which are 2 fantastic discard cards to have. Corvus Glaive may be a lot more appealing if Khonshu kind of has his own package. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how this kind of all turns out. I think this is a great week. I'm definitely going to be chasing after Khonshu, because I think he's going to be one of the more interesting cards to kind of build around in this month. Anyway, on to the next thing. Okay, let's run through the weeks real quick as a quick summary on how I'm actually going to be spending my resources for the month of March. Week 1, March 4th through March 11th, we've got Isan, a Beta Ray Bill, and Wiccan, and going all in, spending 4 keys. Excited to do it. Week 2, we got March 11th through March 19th. I've got Starbrand, Fastos, and Scar. Probably be using tokens. Actually, if I'm getting Starbrand, I'm definitely using tokens on this week. Week 3, March 18th through March 25th. We've got Firehair, Cassandra Nova, and Nico. Definitely using tokens on this week as well, depending on how they change Firehair. We're just going to put an asterisk on that. I'm hoping she does get some adjustments, and then I'll kind of decide from there on whether I'm actually going to use the tokens on her or not, but that is the plan right now. And then week 4, March 25th through April 1st, we've got Khonshu, Scorn, and Cersei. And I will be using keys on this week as well. So I'm really hoping to just 2 key this week and get Khonshu and Cersei, so fingers crossed. But overall, that is how I'm planning on spending my keys. Out of this point, I'm sitting on 17 keys. 8 of them are definitely going here, so I'll be down to 9 going into April, not counting all the ones that I gained. So I should be actually setting about 12, 13 going into April, which should get me where I want to be. And then on top of it, I am sitting on, what did I say, 21,000 tokens, and so I'll be spending at least 12 here, which is going to drop me down to 9, because I can shockingly do basic math. So that is how I'm planning on spending my resources in March. I'm really excited for it. I know February, I'm not going to say was a dud, but there was not a whole lot of cards that I was really excited about. March and April are looking like to become the complete opposite. I'm really, really excited for April, but we'll see how those change in the coming data mines, because March did get some adjustments that to kind of drop the hype down a little bit. So we'll see if that same thing happens in April. But let me know your thoughts. Who are you spending your keys on? Who are you going to spend your tokens on? Is there specific cards you're chasing after? Are you looking forward to the busted nature that Firehair is currently, or are you like me and think that she probably needs to get adjusted before she's released? Are you on the train of Starbrand is probably the most busted card ever? Because I have heard a few people say that. But either way, as always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hit that like button if you did. It really helps out the channel so much. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. That also greatly helps out the channel. I'm pushing on, hoping to hit 3,000 subs. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Check you later.